Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/PettyRevenge, where people get small wins on those who've wronged them. And in this episode, guys, entitled Karens are getting taught lessons left and right. And one Karen takes over daddy's business after he dies, and you guessed it, she frickin' destroys it. I hope you enjoy these satisfying stories. Subscribe if you haven't, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. So I work in a place with a deeded parking garage. Each space is not rented, but owned by a resident. We also only have 75 spots and 300 units. So if you don't have a spot, you have to permit park your car on the street or find a parking garage in the neighborhood. With that said, we had one sweet old lady who I'll call Granny, and she owned a Mini Cooper and a parking space to go with it. Another couple who rented the unit did not have a parking spot, and they took to planting their economy car in her spot. When Granny complained, the renters would just say they were entitled because there were so many empty parking spaces, so Granny could go park somewhere else. So this continued until the day the sweet old lady decided to not be so sweet. She pulled her car in front of the renter's car and parked bumper to bumper. She then put a note on their car saying, "Parking in this space is $150 a day. Please leave a check with the concierge." So the two dummy renters showed up at my desk complaining and moaning about their car being blocked off, and actually expected me to tow Granny's car off. I had to re-explain that deeded parking meant that I could not tow a car from Granny's spot, any more than I could rearrange furniture in her apartment. I told them she paid for it, it's her land, she owns it, and you abandoned your car on her property, so go talk to Granny. So after 20 minutes or so of the renters complaining, I called Granny, even though it was early in the morning. She came down to the desk in her housecoat and slippers with her dog in tow, and they begged her to move her car. And that's when Granny told them that it would be $150. Please leave the check with the concierge. And they kept bitching. Then she told them it'll be an extra $50 for waking her up in the morning because they claimed an emergency. They then asked her how long before she leaves the garage then. And that's when Granny told them, "Dearies, I'm retired. I'll leave my spot when I'm ready. It may be today, could be tomorrow, or could be a few weeks from now." And the price just went up to $175 a day, plus $50 for waking me. And that'll be in cash. Leave the envelope with the concierge. I'm walking my dog, and I'll move my car when I have your rental fee in hand. Now, not only did the renters never park in her spot again, but Granny got her cash the same day. As an added bonus, the two renters complained so much that word got around and I didn't have to deal with that issue for another 2 years. All I can say is way to go, Granny. Great example of messing around and finding out, right? And her being retired and not having to move her car ever was freaking hilarious, guys. Okay, so this is a silly story, but it still makes me chuckle. So a few months ago, I was out running errands on the weekend, and one of my errands had me pick up some cupcakes from a local bakery. This local bakery makes fabulous cupcakes with unique frosting flavors, so they're pretty popular. And due to their popularity, I had ordered ahead. Unfortunately, the woman behind me did not. Insert entitled Karen. So as soon as she queued up, I felt slightly queasy. It was likely due to her perfume, but alas, something more was off. It didn't take long for her to complain about the length of the line. There were maybe 4 people in front of me, and honestly, it wasn't that bad, but it is a small shop, so it can take some time to process everyone. Now, instead of looking at her phone and scrolling through Instagram like a normal human being, Karen decided to whine and moan about how slow the service was. This, of course, made everything feel slower. Once a few people had processed and she could see the glass cabinets, she decided to complain about the lack of variety. It was at this point that the front staff employee who was ringing someone else up told her what they had on display was the last of the morning batch. If she wanted specific flavors, Karen would have to wait for the afternoon batch to be finished, or next time order ahead. And Karen did not like that. She starts huffing, saying how a bakery, again a small locally owned bakery with a maximum of 2 bakers, should obviously make more cupcakes than they can sell, because what if she wants a dozen of their seasonal flavor? The employee tried to explain how they only make a certain amount each day and that's their policy. Again, that she could order ahead or come back later. Now, this entire time I'd been scrolling on my phone, again like a normal human being, I didn't figure Karen would do anything besides making buzzing noises, but I was wrong. We were standing more or less next to one another at the same time since it was my turn to pick up my order, and Karen's face went a shade of red that I can only describe as an overheated pig. She then starts berating the employee, yelling at her, saying how unfair the whole thing was. She just continued to sputter over and over again about the atrocity of not having the cupcakes she wanted. Now, it's never okay to scream at someone who's just doing their job, and the employee looked like she was about to cry, and she was terrified. I decided to teach her a lesson. Now, what Karen did not know was that I had eaten curry the night before. 2 bowls, in fact. I had deliberately been holding my sphincter shut to avoid gassing out anyone. However, at this point, I decided to let my butt blow a kiss to a fellow a-hole. So I turned myself slightly to get ample aim, and I just let it rip. A faint hissing was heard, most likely only by me, as Karen continued yelling. And then suddenly, she stops and starts gagging. It's as if the world slowed as her nostrils sniffed the now pungent air and she took in another whiff. And she gagged again ever so slightly, but I heard the disgust. It took everything in me to not erupt with laughter, seeing her face all twisted up and going completely silent in the middle of telling the employee that she was useless. I pray the employee didn't get caught in the crossfire, as they were a few feet away due to the counter, but Karen certainly took the full blast. Luckily, no one else was behind her. Karen was quiet the rest of the time, and I left the shop with my delicious dozen and a little bit lighter. My goodness, the funniest story that I've read in a long time. And not because the story has farts in it, okay? But it's the fact that OP decided to spite fart a Karen, and that's the thing that literally stopped her dead in her tracks while she was in the middle of harassing that poor employee. It's like she somehow knew that OP was telling her to shut up, and I love it. He's a hero to me, guys. And while we're on the topic of impatient Karens, this next post was shared to me, guys, and it's freaking insane. First, some context. I live in a pretty small town in Northern California. I love In-N-Out, so we do go there pretty frequently. And this happened in February. The characters are Karen, her husband, Employee 1, Employee 2, and the hero, Employee 3. Now, as far as I know, Karen had a pretty big order, which makes me think that she was getting takeout. It was actually pretty calm for about 3 minutes, but you know Karens, they're usually impatient. So Karen tells Employee 1, a tall guy, to please hurry up a bit, and he says, sure. Another 2 minutes passes, and Karen starts whispering something to her husband. Her husband makes a face that I can't help but laugh at. So after 5 more minutes, which should be normal considering how big the order was and how many people there were, Karen gets super agitated and she starts demanding another employee, a dark-haired girl, to step on it. To this, the employee says, "You're just gonna have to be patient, ma'am. We are really busy." Then, all of a sudden, Karen goes to the soda fountain and she starts like a maniac, hitting the dispensers one by one and laughing like an idiot. And this is where employee number 3 comes in. He's a young black man, and he tells Karen to stop the behavior or she'll have to leave In-N-Out. Then Karen makes her big mistake. There's a weird 3-second staring pause, and then Karen yells at the top of her lungs, "Shut your mouth, you filthy," insert N-word. Hearing that, the employee is surprisingly calm, while Karen's husband looks like he's about to throw up. He then starts saying, "Ma'am, you did not just..." And that's when Karen marches into the kitchen, I kid you not. She then tried to hit the employee multiple times, but she failed, and Karen's reign of terror was over. The employee has had enough at this point, and in self-defense, he delivers a punch from the depths of hell, kind of knocking her out. The police did have to come, but at the end of the day, they had more than enough witnesses and footage to prove that the employee acted in self-defense. Unfortunately, I have no footage of this, but my own eyes were enough. I told my parents the story, and they told me to never try to argue with people like that because they're crazy. So yeah, thanks for taking your time to read about my experience. It was pretty wild, to say the least. Yeah, I would definitely say so. And this is taking hunger to a whole new level, guys, and somebody should have tossed Karen a Snickers before she lost it. And honestly, I hope to goodness that she learned her lesson. So I'm a bartender, and in the town I lived at the time, the best time to go to the 24-hour Walmart was after my shift around 4 a.m. I could walk in and out and never talk to anyone and get done quick. So on this day, I have my carts with 4 or 5 items in it, and these 2 guys walk up to me, dressed to the nines, and they ask for some help. Now I know these 2 guys. They don't know me, but they're known all over town to be scammers, and they've been kicked out of almost every bar in town. So the one guy asked me, "Yo bro, can you help me out? I just dropped my girlfriend off at the hospital and we just had a baby. I just need some diapers and I don't get paid until Friday. It's Tuesday. Can you help me out?" Now again, I have personally banned these 2 from the bar I work at for stealing drinks off tables, and they're well known. Even though I know the scam they're running, I say, sure, let's go. And off to the baby section we go. Now, the scam they're running is, they get the person to buy a semi-expensive box of diapers, and when that person leaves, they'll exchange the diapers for cash. So we get to the baby section, and he grabs a mid-range pack of diapers. I had a good night behind the bar, so I say, "Hey man, go ahead and grab that big pack up top. The $32 box. It's the least I can do for you. I've got 2 of my own, and it's really tough right now." And his eyes lit up. He grabs the box of diapers, and him and his buddy are super excited as we walk towards the tills. Now here's where I get the petty revenge. He starts walking towards the open lane, but I swerve towards the self-checkout, and he doesn't like that at all. The guy keeps trying to get me to go to the regular checkout so he can get his receipt. This is key to the scam. I tell him that I'd much rather prefer self-checkout. So I ring in the diapers and he says thanks, and to his dismay, I also add in a Blu-ray disc to the transaction. And here's where I get him. I add that stupid $2 protection, and then stop and say, "Oh damn, I forgot to get dog food, but here you go." And then proceed to pay with a card. You can't get a cash refund on a credit card receipt. So realizing he's effed, the guy still tries to get my receipt, but I say, "Oh man, I can't. I gotta keep it for the protection I bought. I need the code." And then say, "But you guys go ahead, and good luck with the new baby." And then walk off, handing them their giant pack of diapers. So I spent the next 30 minutes just walking around watching them try to beg a couple of cashiers for a refund. But without the receipt, they can't do much. It's also 4:30 in the morning and customer service isn't open and they need that receipt and they don't have it. I see them leave and I check out, and one lady standing beside the self-checkout says, "You know they're just scamming you, right? The minute you left, they tried to get money for those diapers. They do that all the time." I tell her, "Oh, I know they're scammers. They're known all over downtown. That's why I added coverage to the DVD and I paid with a card. And now they have to leave with diapers." She had a good laugh over that. I'm driving out of the parking lot and I see these 2 dudes walking down the road at 4:30 in the morning asking what the F they're gonna do with a box of diapers. It looks like they just left the club with a giant pack of Huggies. I honked and waved as I went by. So because they were a couple of drug heads, they forgot stuff real quick. I was in the same Walmart a few weeks later, and guess who walks up? The same guy. He says to me, "Hey man, can you help me out? I need a few." And I respond with, "Oh yeah, you need some more diapers?" He then gets the deer in the headlights look, and he starts stuttering, no man, thanks anyway." And he shuffles off. Well worth it in my opinion. Hey, to each their own, guys. If OP sees $32 worth it to get rid of scammers, all the power to him. Like, I personally wouldn't have even given those well-known scammers 32 cents. I just hope those 2 gave the diapers to someone who could use them and not just garbage them somewhere. I'm the GM of a largish owned family company. I've been there for ages, and I've loved my job until recently. So the CEO until 6 months ago was the founder of the business. He passed away suddenly, and his daughter Karen has taken over. Now it started well, as she's clever, hardworking, and experienced. And there was also a lot of goodwill, as everybody was very loyal to the old man and wanted to help her. But Karen's also a bully, a drunk, and verbally abusive to employees, especially males. So at a business drinks function, Karen got drunk and loudly denounced our most loyal and biggest customer, Bob, as pale, stale, and male. And then she loudly racially abused my wife when she tried to retrieve the situation. This wasn't by any stretch her first meltdown at customers, employees, or their wives. Bob, as I said, was a big customer, accounting for 60% of our revenues. I met Bob the next week. apologized profusely, and asked if he'd ever thought of opening his own plant. And he had. He and Mrs. Bob had dinner at our place, and we all made plans. In the coming weeks, myself, my leadership colleagues, and our machine operators have quietly signed up to work at the new plant. We've had after-hour meetings, which we codenamed Fight Club, to plan the new business. All very exciting. So here's the revenge bit. We were all on a week-to-week employment contract. And Friday last week, we all resigned by email 5 minutes before clock-out time. Everybody did. Karen was sitting at her desk with email after email rolling in with resignation in the subject line, and you could see the blood draining from her face. Now, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. And then I remembered what she said to my wife. So tomorrow's our last day, and we've recruited all the remaining employees to the new business. And on Monday, the lights won't come on, the motors won't turn on, and it'll just be Karen and a pile of raw material with no one to process it. Her business has sufficient equity to recover, but it'll be 6 months by the time she recruits a new team, and maybe even longer to recommission the plant and get the order book full again. It'll take her between 18 to 24 months to get the business out of the red. Guys, this is such a huge revenge on Karen, and honestly, this does dip into nuclear fallout territory where the business might be destroyed forever, because being a bully, an alcoholic, and verbally abusive to employees isn't the best attributes to have when trying to build up a brand new, loyal, and functioning workplace. Like, I can see the turnover rate being insane, and the business will never make it out of the red unless she changes. So this happened way back. My daughter is 30 years old now. When I was 18 and in my first year of college, I got pregnant. The father joined the Navy to escape responsibility. My parents abandoned me and they cut me off financially. They wanted me to have an abortion to prevent the loss of my scholarship. And that's how I found myself at 18 years old, suddenly and totally responsible for myself and my living situation, with no financial or emotional support from anyone. I lived in a private dorm, and I was befriended by a property manager named Donna. When I told her my situation, she swooped in like a hero, and she helped me get a place to stay at one of the other properties she managed. I was getting evicted from the dorm. She then helped me get a job at the gift shop at one of those properties. Now, I thought she was the most wonderful person for all this until her true motives became clear. She wanted to adopt my baby, even though I expressed no interest in giving up my baby for adoption. So after a few weeks of work, she launched a campaign to convince me that I was unfit to be a mom and that my baby would be so much better off if I let her have it. At first, it was subtle. It was like passive-aggressive remarks about how much money she and her husband had, and she couldn't have children herself, and how she hoped she was able to adopt one day, and what a wonderful life they would give their baby. But as time passed, her approach became more aggressive and direct. She was always around the shop, and she would come into my apartment ready to point out things I did or didn't do that proved what a terrible mom I would be. She went into long rants about how awful I was for having a baby without a father, and how we would be welfare trashed forever, and how God brought her into my life because she was meant to have my baby. It was endless and constant for months, and sometimes I would let her comments upset me and make me wonder if she was right, but in my heart, I knew I'd be a good mother. For a while, I let myself be bullied into including her into baby-related events. I even let her go with me to the sonogram, where I found out my baby was a girl, and she was so excited. For me. As I got closer to delivering, I got stronger in making clear to Donna that I wasn't giving up my baby. I tried to avoid Donna as much as I could, but I was regularly reminded how much power she had over my living situation. I soon had my coworkers telling me that she was claiming my baby's adoption was a done deal. She even told people she was decorating a nursery and buying baby girl clothes. When it became clear that she was not going to change my mind, she started threatening me with eviction from my apartment and firing me from my job. That way, I would realize how unstable my situation was, and I would recognize that I had no business having a baby. And sure enough, I lost my job. She fired me for not wearing my shoes behind the cashier's counter at the gift shop. Being pregnant, when I was on my feet all day, my feet would swell right out of my shoes. So I would stay behind the counter and slip my shoes off for a bit, but never in view of the customers. Still, that was a reason enough in Donna's mind to teach me a lesson. And of course, it didn't take long after losing my job to also lose my apartment. I ended up couch surfing and even spent some time homeless until I got some housing assistance. In the meantime, I had gone to the EEOC and complained, and they helped me mediate with the owners of the gift shop, and as a result, Donna got fired from managing that property, and I got months of back pay and some extra money for my trouble, in exchange for not full out suing them. The small cash windfall actually turned out to be a huge blessing that actually enabled me to survive financially until I had my baby and could get back in school. Donna firing me was the best thing that could have ever happened. I saw her years later and she was still childless. So the best revenge is my daughter is now getting ready to graduate with a full scholarship from a top law school. It turns out being raised by a single mom is not as awful as Donna thought. Effing bravo, OP. The best revenge in life is proving others wrong and living your best life. And I'm so glad to read that OP ended up doing it all by herself and raised such an awesome and smart daughter. Go, mom. And yeah, if you guys have been tuning into the channel, I've read a lot of stories about people wanting other people's babies, and there's only one word to describe these people. They're psychos. Like, the woman went around telling people that the adoption was a done deal, and she started decorating a nursery and buying baby clothes. Y'all, what in the world? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /PettyRevenge. Guys, if you enjoyed the stories today, hit that like button, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/ProRevenge, where OP's wife cheats on him with 8 guys, and then she gets deported. OP frickin' deports her, or has her deported. It's such a wild story, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.